Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we're back to our story about my uncle. Let's continue. My newest setup for how I have my monitors set up seems to particularly dislike switching the TV input, so I have to often exit out games. And you know what? In the long run, that probably is a good thing because there have been some occasions in the past where I have paused a game and just left it running for weeks on end. And usually that would result in absolutely no problem. But sometimes, on a rare occasion, it would cause just random crashes because the games had something like a memory leak where it would just take up all the RAM. So we're in a different area that mostly looks exactly like the same area we were just in. We just have some red lights. And here you can see some flickering brightness when I scroll back and forth. At least I can see that, which makes me think that motion blur is probably causing that. So let's turn that motion blur off and let's see what that looks like otherwise. Yeah, I don't know why the brightness would flicker, and it seems like it's kind of still flickering in and out as almost like a visual pop-in, but oddly, it's staying brighter on the peripheral and then getting dimmer as I look closer, which doesn't make a lot of sense, and it's that whole distance just does seem fairly blurry. Excuse me. We've also been introduced now to foggy ground instead of water, so my compliments around the idea.
Who are you?
Oh, I was not
You're
expecting
not
to
from
see
here.
a character.
Wow, you look just like Fred, but smaller, and with less hair on your face.
Oh.
She knew Fred. I told her that he was my uncle, and that I was looking for him.
What's an uncle?
I said that he was, that I had known him all my life.
Really?
Interesting.
Me too. I'll help you find him.
Interesting that you have
I'm Madeline.
the narrator.
The others call me Mad Maddie sometimes.
Hmm.
I don't know why, really, but you can call me Maddie. You've never been to the village, right? Let's meet over there in the square. I'll show you around. I bet you can get there easily with your suit thing. So, I'll see you there.
So,
I couldn't believe it. An underground village, inhabited by frog people, or more like salamanders. Either way, they walked like humans, they talked like humans. How is that possible?
paper airplanes, I assume. That's what these are, not teeth. It'd be fairly easy to think that those are some kind of weird spikes or teeth. Yeah, I was definitely not expecting people. I feel it's very weird to have a narrator narrate a story and then not voice his own dialogue. Unless there's something that they are specifically trying to hide in that aspect of describing his relationship with his uncle, in the sense that perhaps this really isn't a story about an uncle as much as it might just be a story about the father himself, and he has created the uncle concept as a way of not directly telling his daughter, who is the recipient of this bedtime story, that he is some kind of magical, as it were, that checkpointed me weirdly in the wrong place. So apparently it wants me to run, jump, fling myself, shoot myself. That can get me there. And then that resets me. But I think I'm supposed to avoid using one of the flings, or I'm supposed to realize that sure would be convenient to have a different fling. Or maybe you don't really need all the flings always. Half human, half frog people would make sense for the bridges we're seeing, although I don't know why the bridges particularly people would want that. But yeah, maybe the frogs don't just always want to be in the water. And maybe they do want to get up higher. This is weird because this does not well describe where I should be going. But apparently that was the direction. This game is almost certainly going to be a masterclass in breadcrumbing, which is something I talk about a lot but don't actually describe. It's the general idea that the game is visually, or even using audio or some other concept, pointing the player in the direction they're supposed to go, while still giving the perception that it actually is an open world where you could go any direction you want, when that's not really true. There's tons of invisible walls and places where you would just die if you tried that. This is also a game that's going to be a masterclass in just fairly pathetic failures. See, the problem here is you're going to hit the wall if you're supposed to just fling yourself upward like that. So I'm just hoping that that was close enough. This big archway. That was very awkward, though. Like, not a smooth transition. Now, the fact that they have introduced new characters and we're going to a village does potentially open up the game to a totally different experience, where we probably still will be flinging ourselves around, but maybe we can get some other side mini games. It almost seems like the uncle certainly brought this technology, or some of this technology, to the fish people. Where? I don't even see her. I hear someone yelling, "Hey!"
Over here.
We don't really have 3D audio here. So,
Hey!
like, the 3D audio,
Over here.
is that her? Like, there's a bunch of people in this little fort place.
Hi, welcome to my village. This is the town square, and that over there is Fred's tent. I haven't seen him in a few days, though.
Just looking at the
Maybe
wrong
Elder
person.
Samuel knows where he is. He knows a lot of stuff. Mostly boring stuff, if you ask me, but it's worth a try. Before asking him, though, you should check out the village. It's not so bad, unless you have to stay for too long. When you're done, go to the island with the windmill, and you'll see Samuel's coat from there. I'll go on ahead and tell him that you're coming. He's not much for surprises. Later.
Okay.
I thanked Madeline and agreed to meet her later. It was strange. How could I talk to someone who was not even human and still feel like it was perfectly normal?
It's weird that they have that line of dialogue, but then the fingers and hands are all up here. I kind of feel like the uncle probably threw his junk in this world, and it somehow magically created the frog people. And we have a crowbar that probably is a Half-Life reference. Here we have a picture of a man. Here we have apparently tomatoes equal corn. I mean, you definitely do see trash being used. And you definitely see that they've tried to animate multiple people here and succeeded, which that screams more polished than you would have gotten from a low effort game. And frankly, it even screams a little bit more quality than you would expect from an independent game. It would be very, very easy to not have these other people here. You just rebuild this so that there's only like one location where somebody sleeps, and you get rid of all the stalls and the sales things, and you have just the one character that's talking to you be the only character that lived here. Maybe even that opens up the door to there being a great catastrophe and all the other people potentially did live here, but they all left. Okay. Doesn't seem like there's much there at the moment. And I kind of have to wonder, is this going to be a case where these levels just get longer and bigger? Or is this going to be a case where the collectibles are going to be hidden better than the first level? It's very possible I've missed 2 or 3 collectibles already. This is rather a large amount of people with different animations and such. Like, in a weird way, we often see games that are called walking simulators, and I would almost argue that the event of walking in any environment where you might run into other people is also about seeing other people and interacting potentially with other people, at least on a small level. But most walking simulators, the fog, interesting, inherently are low effort games that don't have any people in them at all, and it's become extremely cliche to see a walking simulator where everybody has disappeared for one reason or another. The frog people.
Like most of the shacks in the village were built out of trash. Trash from our world. It was, after all, a garbage disposal pad that took me here.
So I wonder if he built this technology in to actually help them and give them resources. Because I suppose he could have certainly just put pallets of wood over and over and over and again and building materials, but he probably isn't a man of infinite resources, so I imagine he couldn't have supplied what we're now seeing is a very large society, or at least it's being hinted at that it's a very large society. So if you convinced all humans to send all their trash to this world, that might work as a way of giving them resources. Although at a certain point they have to be very, very smart about how to use the trash, otherwise their land will quickly be flooded with unusable resources. A lot of things can be recycled, yes, but a lot of things can't. And there's all kinds of like farming stuff. So he's apparently trying to teach them how to grow their own food. So that does imply to me that this is not an agrarian society. So they've either been hunting and eating animals, or it's a massively quickly growing society in the sense that maybe it didn't exist even a few years ago. Maybe he just created them and they age fairly quickly. Look at the fire animation here. That is particularly bad. It's like 3 frames going in a circle. But should I complain about that? Also doesn't hurt you. You can walk right over it. Um, yeah, it's questionable whether you actually do need to complain about that, though, because that's not what this is. It's not what this game is about, I don't think, at all. And here's a toilet. So, I don't know if they use toilets. At a certain point, if you grow a society this fast, too, you have them repeat all the same mistakes of your current society. One in the form of becoming people of excess who want to own too much and create too many different things that are unnecessary. Like these houses, for instance, are they really necessary for these people, or did they safely live in underwater caverns or like natural crevices in the water? Have you taken them out of their natural habitat in the argument for effort? Plus, you tell them how to grow food, and then you increase the health and happiness of the population, and then you have a baby boom almost certainly, and then there's too many people, and then there's not enough food. That's why you have to kind of like plan pregnancies, for lack of a better term. All these people do seem to be very happy, though, with the exception of calling the girl Mad Madeline. So far, this has worked very well. Also, this is oddly easy. Like, we really are just in a city. It'd be kind of difficult to get up inside a lot of this stuff, but there's also kind of nothing here. And I have to applaud the fact that they have pretty much animated the same character and then recolored and reskinned them so that there's a lot of people around here. So if this became a game where you potentially... Something's making sound. That one is. If this becomes rescue missions and you have to help the people, that might be what's going to happen. Or maybe it will become a overall, you've got to save this society, and that's why the uncle has been missing. That is a better evolution of the story, certainly, because it would be fairly boring to be told that, oh no, your uncle is just hanging out with his new friends and he forgot about you and forgot about coming back to his world. Or maybe, although we still don't really know if we're not trapped in this world. There's not a direct, obvious way in which one could go back. Doesn't feel like there's enough sun exposure really to grow corn. Yes, I can see that there's a hole in the cave, but that does not feel like that's enough on its own. Although, who knows, we may be on a completely different planet versus just being in some magical cave somewhere, and that might produce a larger number of like infrared rays to grow plants. The soil is probably pretty great in this. These are tomatoes from what I can tell, and the corn and tomatoes probably are pre-bought assets. I wouldn't be surprised if it's fairly easy to buy a pre-modeled piece of corn and tomatoes. Am I going the right way? No. easy to get turned around. Yeah, in time trial mode, I don't see a way that you wouldn't then just rush through this whole thing as fast as possible. You probably fling yourself up fairly high. I'd feel like a cave like this would probably have just some damp humidity issues always. And yeah, you can't interact with things anymore. So there's that. There's a Game Boy. And here you have a painting. People whistling and talking at the same time. That's a little annoying. And let's see. You have something else. Was that a car battery? Looks like it is. So is he trying to charge up a car battery using plants planted? That wouldn't make any sense. Car battery might be being used to keep a light like a heat lamp on the plants. That would make more sense. Well, we see some proof here that she at least likes him. This looks like this is Maddie's area. 3 little pigs.
Did Fred have any kids of his own?
Nope, not that I know of. He lived alone. He didn't really have any time for a family, I guess. He was always away or busy with his inventions. He could be gone for months at a time. I never knew how soon I would see him again.
Don't you think he felt lonely then?
I think he was too caught up in his projects to feel lonely. It seems like he found new friends in the village, though. Maddie seemed to be especially fond of him, taking after all that he did. Maybe Fred was like a father to her.
She didn't have a real father, right? If she was born from an egg.
That's right.
That doesn't mean
we had in
anything.
common.
Ooh, so now we got some backstory that the father telling the story didn't have a father. Now there's a couple dangers in telling a story like this. First of all, a nephew who hangs out with his uncle a lot opens up in storytelling, probably more than in reality, the chance that the uncle is actually the father. And then a old man hanging out with a young girl he's not related to at all opens up the chance to something improper being going on. Although I don't think that's what's going to be revealed here in this story, is that the uncle was grooming the fish. We can zoom in as long as our hands are down. We have the 3 little pigs, and then we have something written in her language, and then we have Maddie.
Did Fred have any kids of his own?
Nope, not that I know of. He lived alone. He didn't really have any time for a family, I guess. He was always away or busy with his inventions. He could be gone for months at a time. I never knew how soon I would see him again.
Don't you think he felt lonely then?
I think
Is there any way to trigger the audio to not play? No.
Friends in the village, though. Maddie seemed to be especially fond of him, taking after all that he did. Maybe Fred was like a father to her.
She didn't have a real father, right? If she was born from an egg.
That's right. That's another thing we had in common.
I guess the father kind of sounds like he's Native American. Now, I have to fully disagree with the idea that you don't have a father if you're born from an egg. Mammals are born from internal eggs. And see, that was marked 4 slashes. Interesting. So we may have missed a bunch of those. But also, chickens that have external eggs have a rooster father. That's not what being born from an egg means, by any means. That was extremely awkward again. We're supposed to be going in that general direction, I guess. Hmm. Hmm. Now remember, we really can't do but 2 of these. So I am not sure where I'm supposed to be even flinging myself. So this, yeah. It would be helpful if there was a bright, colorful center rock. We can see like a dark rock pile there that kind of makes sense, but kind of doesn't. Alright, so I'm just going to try and fling myself to this one platform. I don't know if this is where I was supposed to go or not. Like, I think I'm supposed to now try to fling myself way in that direction. So, was there a different way to get here? I feel like there very well may have been. And it does feel like at some point we might circle right back around and come this direction. Now that we probably are in the actual gameplay part of the game, we may see more encampments without people in them.
A stranger in our halls. Welcome. Our name is Samuel, and we will do our best to assist you. Please tell us what brings you here.
I told him that I was looking for my Uncle Fred.
Remember, he's a
We
kid.
should help. Do you know where he is?
Fred left us without a word. If you aspire to find him, we can share with you a sacred crystal, a power core. Fred used their kind to power his suit. You can have it.
Yeah, you can see Maddie.
Return our Fred to us.
The crystal? Sweet!
Madeline, that was inappropriate. Your help will not be necessary. The crystal is not for you to have.
What? I want to help finding Fred. Why couldn't I?
Please, Madeline, that is impossible. None of us may enter the chasms. It is too dangerous.
What's the danger? If Fred can do it, so can I.
I say this for your own protection, Madeline. You are forbidden from entering the chasms.
Just because you're afraid of what's outside the village doesn't mean I am. I'm nothing like you. I'll never be.
So,
We apologize.
she's like a daughter to him.
But she does not understand. Behind us is the power core. Take it and go into the chasms. Find Fred. And if you see Madeline, take care of her.
So
Be safe.
it definitely feels like he's totally willing to put you as a kid. Now, maybe you are a teenager and maybe he can't identify that because he's a frog person. But he's totally seemingly willing to put you in danger to find Fred, who they do seem to want back. And remember, you die if you touch the water. So that's kind of an odd choice. It's a visually nice looking choice, but it is still a weird choice to have a waterfall section. Very quickly we have all of the power cores, so either we're going to get more power cores or something different.
I felt a little uneasy about moving on into the chasms. If it was too dangerous for Maddie, would it be safe enough for me?
I mean, that is a very valid question. Right, so bling, bling, and then bling, and air. There's a lot of air braking you have in this game, where you can adjust yourself in the air, which you really wouldn't be able to do as a human. You could try and shift your weight one way or another, but you're not going to actually succeed at moving yourself much. Oops. Once again, I've hit the wrong button. Or not enough buttons. Wow, that was a lot more twisty than what I would generally expect from a flinging game. In a funny way, this is called a parkour game, but it's pretty much the opposite of that. Like, there is no actual parkour going on here. This is totally all about flinging and only flinging. There we've got another reading. So the question, I guess, is what is outside outside of the chasm? Is it really a danger? Or are we going to start running into some kind of creatures, insects, bees that might fly around and sting you and get in your way? I would maybe you could have some ground-based enemies that would attack, and then you could potentially use, like, they would attack from the ground and shoot upward. You could do something like that, or you can have really well programmed acrobatic characters that would potentially I'm gonna have to get a lot of air if that's gonna work. Nope. I wonder if I'm supposed to actually jump from there to there. I mean, I can do that. And I can do that, but if you just don't get that timing quite exactly right, you will totally end up in the wrong place. These little reading areas are kind of nothing, just like observation spots. And if we were outside, or if this was just a bit brighter and more colorful, this might be an interesting observation spot. But to me, it mostly just looks like it's a dark chasm. There's a few glowing lights, of course, but glowing symbols can't intrigue me forever. Alright, well. Okay. Seriously? I suppose the real question is, can you fix a game like this where the idea is to swing around a lot and get these shots at perfect accuracy? Because if you're not getting that perfect accuracy, or perfect timing in some cases, then there's really no solution. Like, just fling yourself up, but not fling yourself up so much that you
Darkness swept over me as I
can't,
left the glittering lights in the
that you
village
hit your
behind
head.
me and headed for the ominous shadows of the chasms.
Wow. Is that literally the
As I entered
entire
the
level?
chasms, it struck me how much darker it was in there. The shadows were black as ink, and although I tried not to be afraid, I couldn't help but shiver. Was it the darkness that frightened the villagers as well, or was it something else?
Right, well, wow. Okay, we have now a case of inconsistent length. Because I wasn't doing 30-minute episodes for this series, I don't believe. I think it took like 45 minutes to get through the first level. But if I go a full run a second time, then this will definitely be an hour and 10-minute episode. Is there anything to even fiddle with here? One thing we could try is the gamma. That was speed lines. What's that? Let's turn that off. I don't want speed lines. Let's see. See what a 75 gamma looks like. See, for me, that looks better. Like, there's just more details. Particularly if you're watching it on a TV. TV's color ranges are particularly bad. Particularly also based on the monitor you have. Like, once I installed my new TV and looked at the brightness on that compared to my old TV, I was like, oh, my old TV is horrible about getting brightness and the pure white coloring in bright light. Like, and see, this is a 1.0 gamma. This is where it really should be. So going forward, I mean, the only thing here is if you were looking at something like this, is this so blindingly bright? Because that's about the brightest thing I think we're even going to see in the game. And I would say no. I think this looks really, really nice to my two older monitors. Let's see if there's any other options we can fiddle with while we're here. Subtitles. Speed lines turned off. We'll have to play around with that. See. We never got any like controller sensitivity at 1.0. I wouldn't want to rechange that. I would totally love to change the layouts, but that doesn't even work. Then unlockables. Seems like we haven't unlocked any of this at all. Like beam color, changing that, it would be kind of silly. Goat mode would be silly. Midas mode would be silly. And acrobatic mode, I imagine, will make you motion sick. Okay, well, I guess that means we have to end here. This is potentially a single A game in the sense of its story. That they may not try to get too ambitious here. We may simply travel from point A to point B, be told what we see is happening. There may not be any boss fights here. There may not be any bigger intrigue. Like a more ambitious storyteller would start to hint at the leader of the frog people being corrupt and that Fred being potentially like betrayed by him. Maddie being the only one that really trusts in her. Add more characters, add more intrigue, add more detail. Add more character depth, things like that. But I don't know for sure if that's what's going to happen. Although I was surprised that there were any characters at all. It did very much for that first chapter feel like we were going to just be alone the entire game. And that's bad game design. There was no reason not to have had Maddie at least hopping around in front of you in the first level. That way you saw life and that you were chasing after her. And then she'd just say something like, "Tag, you're it now." Um, and something silly and childish like that would have been a great way to introduce a uh, character trait to Maddie, and it would also guarantee the player that they should play through the first level and that it isn't just going to be a 100% tutorial of flinging yourself and then the rest of the game is just going to be more flinging yourself. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and get me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.